Hanging out with the Larson brothers. Why not? Got to get a beer. Shayne and Shawn Larson. Thanks, guys. Good to be here at Chrysalis. I think it's 1 year. Well, end of June, right? Is kind of when you officially opened last year?
Next week.
Next week.
A year that we were just kind of that soft opening.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
We brought some friends.
Yeah. Welcome.
Cool. You remember Brian?
I know Brian.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
Another guy. He's new to beer, but Dave Thibodeau is going to join us from Scott Brewing Company. It's kind of cool, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not? How's the beer?
It's making my day.
Delicious. He's like, we were at a couple of farms beforehand. Beer has been on our mind, and none better. You guys have a unique program here. I'm going to let you begin with it because this is your guys' baby.
Yeah. So we're trying to do something, a little bit different when it comes to the whole brewing process in the way that we wanted to try. Y'all know, you've been here, and every one of your shows you've been talking about how awesome Paonia is and what gets grown here,
yes, sir,
and all of the cool things. So that was kind of where that brainchild came from, is that there are awesome ingredients here in Paonia. So I've got 2 beers that have cherries in them, one being Montmorency of the sour cherries, but I've got, this week I'm going to go pick lavender at a lavender farm here, and we're going to make a lavender beer.
Oh,
but we also grew our own barley. So our barley was grown in between Paonia and Hotchkiss up on a hillside over there. Amazing little spot, really cool, grain. And then we took it to Thibodeau in Fort Collins. They're like a micro maltster who is getting bigger and bigger because people are wanting that style malt in their beers, Colorado grown stuff. But we took it to them, had it brought back to us, and then we're brewing with that. So roughly 90% of the ingredients that goes into these beers was grown right here in Paonia, which is kind of like what our goal was to have somewhat origin beers and make them unique to this spot. And then, like how wine is made, they say terroir, plays into it. Well, maybe terroir can play into our beer as well, making it special for just this spot.
So literally a taste of the region.
Taste of the region.
I love that.
Well, but that's just the first step, right, Greg?
The flavor of the dirt.
It's
the flavor of the dirt.
Well, but then you do something that's different because you're not just making normal. A normal.
Yeah, so then we go another step.
Normal beer.
Not that, that normal stuff.
That normal, yeah.
So we go another step, and then everything also goes into oak barrels, which we have right behind us. And we age everything in the barrels anywhere from 2 to 3 months up to, I've got stuff in here now that's over a year old. So someday I'll have 3-year-old barrels going, and that'll get blended in with other beers and, come out the other end as something special. But a lot of them, I would say the bulk right now on our list are sour beers, but we do have 2 on the menu that are not. And then we've got some really awesome ones coming out this fall, some dark stuff, bourbon barrel-aged stout. We've got a Belgian Tripel that's aged in a used brandy barrel. And so we've got some really cool non-sour beers coming as well. But again, everything kind of goes into oak. So it comes out of the main fermenter, goes into oak, and then
This model is always just, it's really fascinating to me because you've got the best of the both worlds, but you've got the labor of both worlds in the brewing and the distilling portion of that, truly. And I think of wine and how subjective wine is with price variances and grapes and those types of things. But the literal process that you put into these types of beers themselves, to me, I think they should be like $25 a beer,
right?
And because there's so much to it, and stashing them away for the amount of time. But no, right? Are they $25?
No, they're not $25 a beer. I'm not sure how many people would buy a $25 beer on a regular basis.
Well, they buy wine.
They do. You're right. And, we have our 750 bottles right now. We've got our traditional Saison, which is basically on our menu list over there. Out of the 8 beers that we have on tap right now, 7 of the 8 beers started out as our traditional Saison. So we brew 1 beer, and then I manipulate it however many different ways I want to do it, so they all come out differently. So we've got our traditional Saison, then I've got a sour Saison. I've got a sour Saison that aged on apricots, sour Saison that aged on Bing cherries, and all of these different ones.
In cooking, that would be cross-utilization of your ingredients right there.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Hey, can we take a step inside of the brewery?
The brew house? Yeah, absolutely.
This is an interesting thing because I said to Dave, when you walked in, I said, hey, you know anything about what's going on back here? And he said, I think I know most everything about this system right here.
I know the history of the system.
Yeah. So we've got an antique brewery as well. So that was another cool process in making Chrysalis beer is that we found a brewery that was sitting in a farm field for 15 years and brought it back to life. You can see the copper on the outside on these tanks. We cleaned them up a little bit, and here are the brew kettles and stuff that we didn't clean, and they're just as shiny copper underneath that black patina, So they've sat there a long time. But we got a lot of really neat infrastructure from them. These old Grundy tanks are not really used, or even I don't think they're even manufactured anymore. They use them, a lot of people would use them as their serving tanks. So they would be in a walk-in cooler, and this would be like a giant keg. But I'm using them for fruiting my beer. So I'll take beer out of the barrels that's been in aging for 6-7 months, pump that into here, and this one actually has 250 pounds of nectarines in there, and I put this in here the second week of September last year. So it's been in there aging on the nectarines since then. And this one right here, I'm super excited for. There is 350 pounds of red wine grapes in there with 2 barrels of sour beer. And the flavor that's on it is spectacular.
Local grapes.
Local grapes.
Come on, Greg.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's kind of interesting because at Peach Street, we also have a copper brew house that we got out of a field after about 15 years, and it was the old San Juan Brewing Company in Telluride, and so 2 of these old copper systems that just sat in a field that would have been gold at points in time,
Right.
Yeah, super cool though. It's so, and you said patina, and it's like I might clean those up a little bit, but that looks cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. Well, and it's interesting because the reason why I think these ones look so much better than these ones is that they were actually laying on the ground this way, so the doors were all facing down, and so the back sides of them were just as black as this.
Some of them I remember too. And I don't know if it was these ones. Yeah, so you guys probably put these legs on.
I had to have those legs manufactured because
when they were in Champion Brewery in the early 90s, they actually hung
off the ground.
Yeah, they hung from chains. They didn't have legs. They were floating.
Yeah.
Is that
so
true?
I think they had like a metal girder or something underneath them too.
There was three that were on like some kind of a platform thing.
Right.
But then there was 3 that were hanging.
Yeah, so when you walked up to this tank, eye level was the valve.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was raised up. So eye level was the valve. But that place was I never went there personally, but I got pictures from the architect who designed it. So I saw the pictures of the brewery when it was all in place.
Ah, cool.
And it's like the brew house was on 3 levels. So you had your mash tun, lauter tun, boil kettle, all stacked up on top of each other on 3 different levels. And then it was all open.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, and
it
pictures
was
of the way that these shined, like a brand new.
They were
penny.
brand new, and they were like, when they left there, they were. Champion didn't last long. In all honesty, the beer was just not good. But it was, it was early days when a lot of the breweries, you just needed a color spectrum.
Right.
And Rock Bottom had just opened just down the street too, and it was kind of they had the similar style of beer.
Where was
and Rock
Champion?
Bottom.
Don't you remember downtown Denver, man?
Yeah,
It was right. It was.
I thought it was right on. I heard Tennyson.
Yeah.
So.
But Tennyson's like Highlands area.
Okay.
But I think it was.
Or no.
off of
No.
16th
It was.
Street
Yeah,
Mall.
it was off of 16th Street.
what's
It was
tag-
in
what street is tagged?
Tabor. It was in the.
There you
Yeah.
go.
It was in the
Yeah,
Tabor.
Laramie.
Champion used to be in the Tabor Center.
You guys have moved this brewery like 5 times.
No, it's. I
That
always
was my
said
fault.
it
I
was.
was saying the
It
wrong
was
thing.
downtown. It's in the Tabor. Well, I think that's where you got the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. it was
Remember,
the
Champion
wrong-
used
yeah.
to be in the Tabor.
Now I got it.
Building. But
All right.
here's a question though. I want to bring you into this, Dave, because you don't do this kind of brewing.
No, we do.
Oh, do you? The
It's-
barrel age?
It's just it's part of what we do, and it's
not their main
It's
focus.
not it's not our focus.
Have you seen this bung? A bung like this? Do you know? Have you?
yeah,
ever,
that's-
I'm not familiar with this. Where it's got. Because you're.
It's like an airlock.
And you
So
were
the-
telling me you're adding stuff, and that's why it's.
Yeah, so I'm making a lot of my beers are sour beers,
Actually,
right?
I've seen that.
So what I'm doing is I ferment in stainless, and then I move out of the stainless when it's done fermenting into the barrels. But then I'm adding lactobacillus and other bacterias, Brettanomyces, stuff that his brewery has essentially been scared of for years and years and years because it can infect everything. Like if you're in a big brewery and you're packaging stuff and Brett gets into your beer, it will change the flavor of the beer over time slowly. So you send it out to a liquor store, it sits on the shelf, then someone buys it, and then all of a sudden it doesn't taste the way you wanted it to taste. You know?
Interesting.
All right, you brought it up, but since you're talking about it, Shawn, if there's Shawn, his funk bottle is somewhere nearby.
Oh, I got several of them now.
Where you do?
I call it the funk bucket.
Yeah, the funk bucket.
Yeah. There.
Try those.
There's a bunch back here.
There's a couple.
Couple of them back there. They have different. The small carboy on the right there. Actually, the funny thing about that one, I started a growler probably 8 years ago, and every time I drank a sour beer that I liked, I dumped the dregs in the bottom. I've kept that thing alive like a sourdough starter for 6 years, 7 years, and every time I brew a beer and it goes into the barrel, I dump a gallon out of that bucket into the barrel before when the clean beer goes into it. And then I replace it with a little bit of wort, or sometimes I use apple juice, and that sort of thing. And then I just kind of keep that going. And I mean, some people know, like some sour breweries are like, they know exactly what they put in there. Some places are completely wild. I'm kind of like half in between because I have no idea what's in that bucket, but it's turning out good beer. And I'd been brewing sour beers at home for fun for that long time too. So like I knew it could produce good sour beers, but I'd have to send it to a lab and pay someone to find out what's in there. And honestly, as long as it's working, I'm fine with that.
Sure, absolutely. Shawn Larson, Dave Thibodeau. Come. So throughout this interview, till we end here, just make something up, and let's see if one of us can catch that you're totally lying to us about something. I bet Dave will catch it. I'm not sure.
I'm gonna run with it.
Are you gonna run with it? Just see if you can sneak something in. It's just total BS.
See what I can do.
Yeah, see what you can do. All right. As we continue on throughout, it's a very modest space. I mean, really.
I've seen breweries in smaller spaces, though.
Have you seen Spice Trade's spot in the Yak and Yeti up north in Arvada?
I have not been there, but
it's in a bait. I don't know. It must have gotten grandfathered in because it is terrifying to go down in there.
It is.
But there are some small spaces. How much can you keep going in here?
I mean, well, I was doing a organizational barrel project, so these can stack 3 high.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of space where it's not stacked 3 high.
Sure.
So if I get everything stacked 3 high, it'll all fit into that small space back there.
Good problem to have.
Getting all this out of the way. So, and our COVID close down has maybe let me be a little bit lazy in my organization.
I understand. I do. But here we are, and you're doing business again, right? Patio is.
We're
you
actually
didn't even have a patio last time we were here.
No,
I
we
don't
were
think.
building the patio like the week you guys were here last time. And right now, actually, I believe the rules are you have to have food to have your patio open.
Gotcha.
So we're still doing to-go sales mostly, but we're gonna have food or a food truck or something lined up
Shortly.
next week.
Nice.
And then we'll be open after that.
A bag of cherries won't work.
A bag of cherries will not work. Chips or pretzels do not work. That's on the list. But again, I mean, I'm not 100% sure how all this is. There's quote guidelines.
Yep. Guidelines.
Are they real laws? I mean, it's really
we talk about that.
It's a scary time to not know. You can go on the alcohol website and not get the information you need. So is it a health
depends on
department
how much
thing?
the city likes you, really, and the bureaucrats.
So
Comes
I mean,
down.
there's another brewery in town here, and they've been having a food truck every time they're open. So that covers the basis of, and I don't understand why food is.
Where it gets confusing with breweries, because when the governor made this order, he was just thinking restaurants. He doesn't understand. He said he's never been to a brewery tasting room before. When we had a brewery meeting with Governor Polis, and to him it was all the same thing.
It's pounding beers, it's burping, and it's hugging.
Right.
So
that's what happens.
I think at the end of the day, I mean, we actually have food at SCA, so it's not an issue. But I think
Great
at the end of the
pizza.
day, that wasn't a rule for us to begin with. And see, restaurants though, it came along with booze to go.
Right.
And that's where they said you got to have food on the ticket. But it was a restaurant mindset.
Right.
And because we've never had that be a deal with us, with breweries.
Right.
We just got lumped in.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, we could talk ourselves out of it if
Right.
we needed to. I don't know, but I feel like it just wasn't a consideration when the order came.
Yeah, and I think there probably was so much scrambling going on, not to blame anyone.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think Polis is a drinker. So, from what I've heard he's a smoker.
He's a little pup.
That's what I heard. I don't know.
Not saying it.
He likes, because like the weed laws get passed, but the beer laws,
Send emails
Yeah.
to Shawn Larson.
that's just what I heard.
Chrysalis.
I'm just saying. I saw it on the Facebook. You can't believe
Smoking
everything.
Something. I don't even know if it's weed. So usually we get to do a deep reach into one of these barrels here. You have anything?
Actually, what I'd like I really want you guys to try this one. That's
Right out?
wine grapes.
Okay.
So we could pull some off of there. Hold my microphone.
I shall do, sir.
Or just drop it.
Yeah.
You're so good at that.
Let them
guy.
taste it and then just mic drop.
So don't pour too much because we're not all going to drink off this same glass. Oh, that sounds like a great plan.
This is where Brian comes in. Look at that.
Ooh.
That's pretty.
You're proud of this.
Take a whiff of it.
You said which grapes now, Shawn?
Oh,
They are Chambershon grapes.
Wow, you can really tell.
I've got one here.
Look at the color
Thank
of
you,
that.
sir.
How much longer is that going to have to age?
I'll just take my original glass. Give this one.
I don't know. I kind of feel like it might get bottled here pretty soon.
Oh, really?
When you guys taste it, let me know what you think.
Well, walk us through what we should be feeling here, and let's see if we can grab something too.
I mean, I
just
think-
right off the nose. What are you getting, Dave?
I mean, to me, you get grapes right away.
Yeah, like real grapey right off the nose.
Musty, earthy. But
Wow.
like a raspberry, too.
Yeah. I think red fruits, that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of the stuff that when you sit down with someone who's like a real wine professional and they're like, I'm getting strawberry and raspberry and all that stuff off the nose, and when they get those flavors, I think this has got a lot of that too.
I pulled the strawberry right away.
Yeah.
And this is going to get carbonated. So
I'd drink it this is kind of,
Kool-Aid,
yeah, it's
right?
good stuff. And the
it
temperature is
tastes-
fantastic.
I mean, it's a hybrid that almost leans heavy on the wine side. Like almost still like
Yeah.
this, almost more wine than beer.
So what would be the difference between this and like an Ono beer?
Well, it would classify.
Would it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But it's got enhancements with grapes, not brewed from grapes.
right. So I mean, I didn't press the grapes or create
Gotcha.
grape juice. I ran through a destemmer, which does kind of mash them up a little bit. But I dumped whole grapes, so skins are in there. The only thing that didn't go in were the stems, because they probably would create a bitter.
Yeah, what is balancing the bitter off of there? Because you get it, the bitter comes up on you and then backs off of you right away.
And I think too, like the more that I sit here, I've only taken one sip, and I'm thinking about what's in my mouth right now, and I taste the beer.
Yeah.
The sour beer, the traditional sour saison.
But it takes seriously a minute.
Right. Well,
It
it
is
is
really-
so heavy on the fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, once Greg said strawberry, and I was thinking raspberry. That's what I got right off the bat, but now it's so strawberry.
Yeah.
Right forward, right away. And then it goes right into the sour, for me anyway.
It's really good, but yeah, and then sour.
About a minute later, though, is now I'm tasting
Yeah.
the
Taste the beer. Yeah.
That's
really good.
quite the blend. And,
It's really
and
good.
The initial smell was the funk and the earthiness that I was getting from that.
Right.
And then it drew itself in because the complexion of it, once you start drinking it, it really changes off the nose. So the antithesis of going back and forth, the oppositeness to me is really what makes it. That's a delicious, that's good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm really excited for that one.
Does carbonation change? Will it open it up again.
Big time.
So like, because I'm wondering, will the carbonation push the beer from the back a little more forward?
For sure. I mean, well, I don't know actually if it'll push the beer out. Or
Well,
not.
push, yeah, or just make it taste, because it's a big. I mean, this is a big flavor.
Right.
If you don't have anything else going on.
Carbonation does a lot of different things, but there's a carbonic bite to it that is bitter in and of itself.
Yeah, and adds
it's just
mouthfeel.
CO2 is a bitter flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the bubbles will be releasing, you'll get good aromas off of that, but it masks a lot at the same time.
Yeah.
So it reveals a lot it makes it more aromatic, and that's why you swirl it and the bubbles pop and you can smell everything. That's why the shape of the glass matters. But then in the actual flavor, I think a lot of the actual flavor you actually get is olfactory. It's coming through your nose when you're drinking the beer.
Okay.
And then the CO2 has a bite itself that covers up. It won't. I don't think it'll be a great, refreshing, lighter tasting beer when it's got bubbles to it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think this is a treat right now. I think.
Yeah.
And once it's got bubbles, like
Well, it drinks more like a spirit or a wine.
yeah,
Right.
it's gonna be it's gonna be delicious. It's gonna be very different.
And
I
would
think
you
once
drink
you
it
add
cold?
CO2.
Different temperature.
I'll run it through the bubble maker. I got one of those little soda streams.
Oh, there you go.
And so
Perfect.
when I would at Big B's, I would do like test batches and it explodes. It's crazy because they say don't put anything in but water in here. You know, so
Bubble machine.
It's nuts, but you can get yourself an idea of what it's going to taste like once it's carbonated.
It really does change the flavor of beer when
Yeah.
you carbonate it.
Well, there's carbonic acid
Yeah.
in there as well, and that's probably that bitterness.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shawn,
It's
talk-
I would think this would be good, like lightly carbonated. I don't think but it would be
Overdo
good.
it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I would
Well,
do.
because
I would
I'll-
do just like you're saying, run it through the bubble machine.
Rub it through the bubble machine. Yeah.
And I could also see this like on a pump, in a almost like, because to me this could go to a mead. If there was honey in this,
Right.
this would to me almost be like a mead, that mead wine.
Right. Well, and I'd be interested to see too, like as time goes on, this will change in the bottle as well, because my sour blend, like we were talking, it definitely has Brett in there, and some of my cherry beers now that are older, I can really start to taste that Brett is coming out, and Brett does interesting things under pressure. So once it's bottled, and I don't really know the science about it, but I've listened to the Sour Hour podcast quite a few times, and they talked about how under pressure Brett changes, and so it also works slowly. So over time, this thing could change again, and that Brett gives out some of that stuff like, I don't know, they call it like horse blanket and hay and some of those other flavors that are kind of that funkiness that you get in sour beers. So it's going to be an evolution in its process, and the cool thing about this again is that it's just fun because you never know what it's going to turn out to be. Hopefully, it's not bad, but
And all of these beers evolve. I mean, daily. You probably can't notice it daily, but if you're tasting it by the week, the month, whatever, it's every single beer in these barrels is going to be different a month from now.
How do you know when to catch them? By taste?
That's
by your
it.
own flavor?
Yeah.
Yep. You got every couple weeks I taste them, and then so I'll come in here, and when I make the sour and I make the base to blend with fruit or whatever, sometimes I'm using a barrel that I made 3 months ago and a barrel that's 8 months old, and I'll blend those together. Oh, this one's a lot more acidic. The sourness, the tannins, like all that stuff. Hey, I want some of that, and this one. So you get into like a blending process as well.
Hard to reproduce or replicate.
It is hard to reproduce, but maybe that's also the fun.
Yeah.
That it might not ever be the same.
Yeah.
I might not ever be able to make that again. I may make one that's good, but it might not ever be that one.
A painting when you add a couple of colors and it's colorful and then it changes. Now it's blue. You got the yellow and green and then it's blue. And you get more and more. And then all of a sudden it's just this big blobby and everything's black paste, right? How do you prevent from doing those mixes where it's like, I got to throw this away?
Yeah, it's just gray.
We've used every crayon in the box and created a lot of brown paintings.
Yeah.
You got that. Your sour, the Pink Vapor Stew's got a lot of ingredients in it.
It does, and
got
that's but
apples
that's
and carrots
that's
and
soured
beets.
on the hot side.
Yeah,
So that's
kettle sour.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that we can replicate.
Right.
You know,
But the volume of ingredients.
Yeah.
You got a ton of stuff in there that's not normally in beers. So
beets and carrots
beets,
and
yeah.
apples and ginger.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to ask you with that pink vapor stew when we were sitting up there on the 16th Street Mall just before GABF. We did that interview.
Oh, yeah,
You just-
yeah.
I think you just released it, maybe.
I think so.
And we were talking about because sours give me these deep burps that come out. And you said this is why this doesn't really do that because I mentioned that really didn't strike me as that. And you had an answer for it. Did you just?
I clearly made it up.
You made it up.
Clearly made it up.
Glad to hear that. So talk to our audience. Now we sing praises of you all the time, up and down the front range, and
Thank you.
other people go, okay, well when I'm in Paonia, I'll take a stop or a look. Is there any way or who's drinking your beer right now?
Not too many people have during COVID.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
and especially at restaurants.
Right. I mean, again, we're still just the small guy, and we're labor of love and figuring things out, and
Can you get it to Denver?
we're working on it. We'll have to see how it goes.
Okay, so people could request it, look you up.
Yeah, I mean, it's legal for me to ship within the state.
Sweet.
So we could send bottles. In fact, the brown boxes that you have right behind you are shipping boxes that I just got in.
Get your box filled.
They just came
Today.
in. The UPS man just dropped them off.
No, really, I'd like to share this experience with other people and
Yeah.
curious on how that can happen and want to give you the last minute here to wrap it up and talk to our audience. And we love coming by and seeing you. Next year's progress, it's going to look a little different or a lot
Yeah,
different. I
yeah.
don't know, but every year it's a treat to see you.
Well, I think there's just, it's such a cool process. And again, like what we were saying, like anything can happen. There's a yeast out there that people are brewing beers with that they got off the wings of a bee, and there's dudes finding yeast in their backyard off, the bark of a tree. And they're just swiping swabs on everything. And like, I think this kind of
Beard yeast.
beard yeast. Yeah, there's some brewer that scraped his. Now, that guy was a brewer, and he probably had the residual for what was floating around.
It was like a filter.
Yeah, it was like
in
a
the
filter.
brewery, just
Yeah.
what was in the air.
Is
in the
this
brewery
true?
was
Is
all-
this
Yeah.
the point where you guys are making something? Because I'm calling this one right here.
Actually, this
It's
is
actually
true.
true.
Okay.
They've gotten it from some really weird places too, and I don't really want to talk about it.
All right, all right.
Turtle shells and whatnot. So, but yeah, interesting stuff. So, I mean, it's really kind of opening up. I mean, I think in the last 5 years, you've probably seen from what you guys do to what's happening with like what I do. It has opened up some doors that, and breweries were for years and years and years and years afraid to bring lactobacillus or Brett into their facility
Yeah.
at all. Get that out of here. You're going to ruin everything. And now guys are playing with it.
Yeah, letting it run amok.
Run amok. I mean, I certainly, like I said earlier, wouldn't do it at his place. But, if you had a brewery that wasn't really packaging, you're not going to hurt too much. But if a package goes out the door and changes, then you're in trouble. But, for our standpoint, we get to, have fun and play around. And that just makes it interesting and cool. And, again, I might not have the same product every single time. And I'm totally okay with that, as long as it turns out good. I kind of feel like I'm at a frat party in the kitchen. I'm leaning up against the sink.
Yeah.
Well, let me throw a zinger, Greg. What is it that you got from making? Because you started, not started. I'm sure you have multifacets, but you've been making cider.
Right, for almost 10 years now, yeah.
What transferred? What did you learn from that you brought over here to say, you know what, this is something that could potentially change?
Well, I think the biggest difference between brewing beer and cider making would probably be the brewing process. So I don't have a brewing process. I don't brew beer. I don't need to extract sugars from grain. I just crush an apple and I got my sugar, in the form of apple juice. Making hard ciders, again, a really similar process to how winemakers make wine, but I carbonate it at the end, whereas wine doesn't carbonate. So those are kind of like the biggest difference. I mean, ultimately from Big B's, the stuff that I learned and am still learning, while I'm there is, I didn't have a clue about packaging when I was a home brewer. I knew you put it in the bottle with some extra sugar and let it carbonate in the bottle. I didn't know anything about filtration. I didn't know, so there was a lot of stuff like on that end that I learned from Big B's. I mean, all invaluable information.
Here's one for you, and then we'll wrap it up and get going down the road. Jeff Schwartz mentioned last night how dialed in your consistency is at Big B's right now, and how appreciated that is. That's a tough one to come over here to where there's not much, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that consistent mindset that's hammered into your head at Big B's, and then to come over here and kind of let that veil down.
Yeah.
That might be a little
Maybe it was
interesting.
my release.
Maybe.
Like it was like everything has to be exactly the same. But the great thing about Big B's and Jeff, he has just, I'm not on a leash.
Yeah.
He's like, he trusts me. And so like,
Well, he just doesn't know how to do your job, probably.
he
That's
could
fine.
figure it out.
That's
He's a smart guy.
well,
But
yeah.
no, I mean, I think, like you've got certain products that I make. I've got 4 core products in cans, but then we put out specialty stuff all the time. So I do get that opportunity to play around, and that stuff is the fun stuff.
Experimental.
So the experimental stuff. So again, bringing that to here, going, I get to do fun stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like we've got customers that come in, we've been open for a year now, that, this guy rolls in and he drinks our sour saison, that's his drink. Nothing else. We got the guys that want the chamomile and honey, and that one is awesome. It's such a great beer. And, that one, those ones I'm going to have to figure out how to make sure I make them the same, all the time, because I don't want that regular customer to come in and go, well, it was good and now it's not good, So
Yeah, once you come, you're a customer for life.
Right.
I guarantee it. We've given you, I don't know, 1,000,001 reasons now to come visit the region, Paonia, and the surrounding area, but here's just another one of them. It's Chrysalis and Shawn Larson, your brother, hanging out behind the bar. It's a cool place, man. I can't
Cool.
wait
Thank
to
you.
see throughout the years. You're really digging in. You shows.
It's gonna
Yeah.
thrive, brother.
Keep that hustle
It's gonna
up.
thrive.
I mean, it's just fun, and we wanted to be. Paonia has so many awesome, like you were saying, reasons to come here, for tourists to come visit, and ultimately this was just in the back of my head of like this is just another facet, and I think that one thing that we didn't mention on, and even with that one having the wine grapes in it, I have a multiple amounts of wine drinkers who do not drink beer have come in and said, I didn't know beer could taste like this. And now they're hooked.
The gateway drug.
It's the gateway into beer. And so us being a wine region, and having 11 wineries here in the valley, this can just get added onto the tour.
Yeah.
At the end, you come and drink this, and you're like just as shocked at how the flavors turn out,
cool
and
stuff.
all that stuff.
Did you ever get that as an Airbnb across the street?
Yeah, that's great.
It's going?
Yeah, this is an Airbnb.
Oh, it
across the
is?
street.
All
Yeah,
right.
So
you
my buddy
stay right
Cas-
next door. And
Yeah, my buddy
stumble home.
Casper owns the house across the street, and it's an Airbnb. So there's renters in it right now.
What's the address here?
We are on First. It's 201 First Street.
How would you describe it to people when you're saying how to get here? This is always fun to say. What do you say?
Go to the end of Grand Avenue, and you hit a T and take a left, and there we are in the old packing shed.
Just like you said it.
Yeah.
All right, this is cool. We're going to mosey on down the road. I don't know if you're going to be joining us or not. Do we have another stop? Or are we going to go?
Are you gonna go to Storm Cellars and then?
I don't know what we're doing, but as we figure it, we are? Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll continue
We'd
on.
love you to come.
Down the road. The Modern Eater Show continues.
Cheers.